Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this sun of Brussels, and all the politicians that lord upon our house in the deep bosom of Europe buried.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.
Yep.
This week, we debate Macron, Merkel, and May in the bleak midwinter. Well, it is the season of goodwill, peace to all mankind. Well, there hasn't been much goodwill in the world of politics. A confidence vote, a promise to stand down, and thousands of miles travelled has blighted Theresa May. But President Emmanuel Macron has also had his troubles. Yes, the Yellow Vests have demonstrated on the streets of Paris about tax issues and demanding more compromises on his policies. Well, as far as Angela Merkel is concerned, she's just simply fading to grey. Well, each of these politicians are blighted. Who would really want to be a political leader today? They're looking haggard and forlorn. Yes, well, they're now definitely in the bleak midwinter.
Yes.
Now the snow is on the roof, and you're in the bleak midwinter. The blasted holly and the ivy has given you a big, big splinter. Your ding-dong is not so merrily on high. Your hark the herald can't reach its height. It's time to wish you were away in a manger and just get a jolly good silent night. Mm-hmm. Well, I can imagine each and every one of them would hope that this terrible winter of discontent would end. Clergyman Pete, let me ask you, who would be a politician today, and what would your advice be to Macron, Merkel, and May?
Well, Businessman Mark, well, advice is difficult to give to them because I'll tell you what, my basic piece of advice is just go. Just go now before you cause any more trouble. But if I were to be giving advice, assuming that I want them to continue, which I don't particularly, in their current positions, what I would say is there's a couple of things that they need to do. The first is listen. And it's pretty easy to do, in fact. There's a huge apparatus of fact-finding that's used in elections, used to find people's opinions. But what you need to do is get the questions right. So what you need, so I would suggest going in with more open questions, which is takes longer to analyse, but just find out what people actually think, rather than going for rather pointy questions, because I don't believe that they do. I don't believe that they know. And, I used to work for a time for a company that was doing these sort of market research questionnaires, and I recognised that the answers were in the question. You could, depending on how you phrase the question, you could manipulate a different answer. Well, that needs to be taken out of it and just try and find out what people think on certain issues. Yes. So if we take the Macron situation, there are two things that you need to find out, not number one priority. So you need to do a bit of digging and find out what people really think. And that has been the cause of the civil unrest in France. And then there's the French generals accusing Macron of treason over this UN migration compact that he signed. And their problem there is that Macron is agreeing to have huge numbers of migrants coming into the country, some of which will be refugees. And if you were to ask the people, no, they don't really want it. Yes, if you ask them, do you care about them? Do you feel sorry for them? Do you think that they should be careful? Yes. But we don't want them coming in huge numbers and ruining the country. So just taking Macron as an example, I think all of them are out of touch.
Well, I think this is the thing that we need to get to, isn't it? All three of them, the terrible trio,
Yes,
seem to be
the three
struggling,
M's.
and we know that the political issues occur in any government. You know, it doesn't matter how good a politician is; you're always going to come up to against some objections. People don't like your policies, but when people, as you alluded to with Macron, when people are taking to the streets, there's something really serious there. Something's not happening. You're not listening. You're out of touch. Then when you get your own, say, for example, we turn to the United Kingdom, when you get your own party members really challenging your own authority, that's an issue. And then you've got Angela Merkel, who really, let's be honest, is in a very strange situation because she's already declared that she's not going to run again. So what kind of authority does she really have? And as we know, in the last certainly 2 years, her authority has waned because of some of the challenges that she's had, not within her own party, but I think that the swell of political angst, particularly with the people, is such that actually maybe she's not the right politician for moving the country forward. And I think this idea of reevaluating what a leader should be, a leader really is somebody who listens. I think that's one thing that's certainly clearly missing in this case. But I think the other thing is there is too much centralized power.
Yes.
Clearly, in Theresa May's situation, and I know it's not an easy task, let's put this in context, when a nation decides to come away from a major organization like the EU, you can't do it simply. It was never going to be an easy task. But what she has done, certainly in recent times, which has really caused angst amongst her own party members, is she just simply hasn't listened to those who wanted to leave the EU. She hasn't followed the mandate. The mandate was very clear. To leave Europe, make sure the United Kingdom could negotiate a deal. And for the last 2.5 years, really, the nation has struggled to see any kind of result. Let's be honest. I mean, if we were doing an assessment in, dare I say, an analogy to a school assessment, could have done better. But more importantly, I have to say, what has actually been achieved? Yeah. We're still at square one. This is back to square one. We've got nowhere. And Theresa May is still insisting on pushing through the same thing that everyone's trying to reject.
Well, let's look.
It's inevitable that she's not going to achieve anything.
Yes, looking at how Theresa May operated, saying what she's done wrong, why is she going through hard times? Well, she did appoint a Brexit secretary, someone who was responsible for the negotiating. They didn't let him more than one, and they weren't allowed to do it. She did it.
Yes.
And that is the issue, as it's a centralizing of power like that. Just in the end, it takes hold of you. She's the only one with power. And the thing is, she didn't really want to leave the EU. That's the thing. So I guess we can put certainly in terms of Theresa May, but I think the other leaders we're talking about, Merkel, May, and Macron, they're out of touch. But it's worse than that. They're out of touch, and they think they know better. They know better than the populace. They know better than these. I suppose they're extremely prejudiced against people who will be against the sophisticated European way of doing things. And so they just think people who have a different opinion can just be pushed aside and must be pushed aside. Mustn't be allowed to have an opinion, in fact, because their opinion must be wrong, because they cannot be intelligent or properly educated because they didn't go to the right school, they didn't go to the right dinner parties. They're not one of us, and they must be stopped. And that's true of people you wouldn't expect. I mean, that they look down on. I mean, to us outsiders, they seem much the same. But if you didn't go to the right school or you have the wrong opinion, then you're immediately out and you're looked down upon and cast as being some sort of deluded lunatic, deluded moron, I suppose. For example, the two examples we could give are the two big issues here. So there's Brexit, so they're leaving the European Union, and then there's the related but separate issue of immigration into the country. And if you're against immigration in any form, all immigration you have to be in favour of. It all has to be good, or you're some sort of backwoodsman or little Englander. And if you're not in favour of the EU, then you're racist. And actually, racist is just the blanket appellation that is given to anyone who disagrees with them. They just cannot see. They're not just a little bit out of touch. They're on another planet. Their children... No, I was going to say their children know each other. I mean, let's look at it. They don't have children. None of these people have children. And isn't that extraordinary to have... No, you've got the leaders of these three countries, France, Germany, and Britain. And the leaders planning for the future, none of them have children.
Well, I think it's about the future generation, which again is another concern, isn't it? So to play to that point is that one of the concerns is, as I know that we've used some Shakespearean analogies here, but this idea of the winter of discontent, the doomsayers are saying that whether you're in France, whether you're in Germany, or whether you're in the United Kingdom, clearly that we will at some point in the United Kingdom be out of Europe. There will be a Brexit. Yes, folks, there will, honestly. There will. This is a bold prediction, I know, but we will get there, honestly. It may not seem it. But what will happen is that I think the thing that's actually probably a biggest concern for me is we, as a certain generation, maybe are failing the next generation. And to the point about the selfishness is, I'm going to take the point about the Theresa May situation because this is something that sort of came from one of our heroes. I know that perhaps he might seem like somebody from a bygone era, which is Rees-Mogg, or Rees-Smug as he's often known. And he's a politician, backbencher. But one of the things he's pointing out is that vote of no confidence, although Theresa May did actually win it, really proved a point that for the fact that she won 200 votes and there was 117 against, that's quite significant. And even the people who were offering support were really given a deal in the sense that she's promised not to stand at the next general election. Now, how can any leader not only continue to operate under these current circumstances with the most inappropriate deal on offer that nobody wants, a square peg just trying to be rammed into a round circle, it just doesn't work. But more importantly, as now cannot be challenged for another year, at least another year. And so really she's in an ignominious position straight away. She should have resigned. So his point was that even though she won the vote of no confidence, she never really had the mandate of the party. And this is where the selfishness comes in, because clearly she doesn't want to lead the party forward. And what it needs is somebody who can not only solve this problem now, but is also building for future generations. I don't see these leaders building for future generations.
No.
I've mentioned this before. The localism side is absolutely right, and that's another part of a strategy. It's very much the Mark and Pete mantra, as we know. But there's something more important which sits above that, which is if you're building policies and strategies for any nation or any continent for that matter, you are building it for generations of today and generations of tomorrow. What I see is politicians developing something for themselves today.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Yes, I mean, and if we look at Merkel, we've mentioned these three leaders: Macron, May, and Merkel. We haven't really said much about it, but Merkel, coming towards the end of her career, she stepped down as leader of the party, although she's still Chancellor. And she, however, has really messed up, and to the extent that I can't understand. Other than it could be due to corrupt voting practices, I don't know. I can't understand why she would still be in power, but she has really messed up, bringing millions of people into the country from the Middle East, people from incompatible culture, causing huge problems, social problems across the country. Well, and violent problems across the country. She was so out of touch, but must have felt really good about herself. I was so generous. And in fact, the way it came across was that she was not only...
she's open.
She's a more extreme example. No, they think they know better. She thinks that she is better than us, or better than
She
the
opened
hoi
the door
polloi.
to a dystopian society, and
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people have felt.
Yeah.
And I agree. And the thing is that we've seen this before as well. Where politicians make an absolute mess, and just cleverly sort of sidle themselves away
Yes.
into glorious pastures new.
Yeah.
And something has to be done about that.
Well,
There has to be some form of accountability.
yes. Now the thing is, yes, I agree that when people make such huge and egregious mistakes as Merkel has done, she could just walk away, which is
Yes.
It doesn't seem just,
Remarkable.
does it? But in the Bible, just looking at trying to do a whole rethink as to the way things are being run, the Bible has a very different picture of how governments should run. In fact, the story of the Bible shows how the ideal way of running a country is. The idea of way of running society is not to have a large government, to have a very small government, which is very specialised. Basically, it's for defence, and also the government would, make sure that the water supplies are in place and this sort of thing. So basic amenities and military and police. That's keeping you safe, keeping you secure, and keeping order. And these were called judges, the people who did that. So they were rulers of the country, but they didn't lord it over people. They weren't very expensive. There weren't huge taxes and that sort of thing. Judges 21:25, reference in the Bible. It says this: in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own day, in his own eyes. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes, and that was seen as a good thing. That each person was able to, if you like, be their own little government. That the family was the unit, which did most of the governing. It was only in certain specialised areas that the equivalent of the time of a national government would have had a role. And so they weren't expenses. They could run from voluntary giving, and they didn't need taxation as we have today. And so if we could get back to that model, great. But maybe we can't go that far, but at least we could have a smaller government where these distant politicians have less power, and you go away from the centralised power model, have more and more decisions made at a local level. Then you would have less of a problem with people being distant and lording it over people, as was the problem with the kings in Israel. That was the exact problem that God warned them about in the Bible, and it did come to pass. Gideon in the Bible, great leader, military leader, after he led the people of Israel a successful campaign against their enemies, said, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. Using your own conscience, you come to decisions and you interact with each other. I'm not going to rule over you. And if we could get at least some way to a more libertarian approach where people are free to behave in the ways they want, but the government is strong on defence. They've got it the exact wrong way round, opening the borders, but being very strict on what you can say and what you can spend your money on. The exact opposite of what you want a government to do. We're in opposite town, Mark. We are everything's upside down. Black is white, and up is down, and everything is topsy turvy. I'm going to go. I'm going to walk around with my hands on the ground, my feet the rest of the day in celebration. It's just it's just so far away from what we need it to be, the current political landscape, in order to have a good society where we can be free to live out our lives. That I think we've got a huge Herculean task ahead of us.
Yes. Well, listeners, do you think we're heading for a bleak midwinter?
Yeah. You're asking us. Yes. Go ahead.
Do you feel that Macron, Merkel, and May perhaps are not so much away in a manger, but away with the pharaohs? Maybe they are just simply beleaguered leaders. Well, we would love to hear your thoughts. Why not log on to markandpete.com and let us know what you think? Oh, we hope that things will get better in 2019, and hopefully they will. Well, thanks for joining this colourful conversation today, and join us again next time with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.